that men are privileged, and if so, how?
Silu, can you please do me a favor and repeat that question? Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please just repeat that question for me.
Okay. Since Mira said that, why would you change a society that benefits you? I would then have to assume that she thinks that men benefit from the society. So therefore, uh, does she believe that men are privileged? And if so, how? She can explain.
Okay. Mira, can you please answer that question?
Okay. Yes, I do think that men are privileged. It's literally called male privilege. And one example would be women earning less in the workplace, women constantly being made to feel inferior by men. Um, yeah, yeah. These are just like two that like off my head, but men are definitely more privileged than women.
Just
No doubt about it.
just another question there that I would like to put in. Silu, actually just answer her. Then if you don't say what I think you're gonna say, I'll ask you a question.
Must I answer her?
Yes.
I don't think she asked. I don't think she asked the question.
Oh, okay.
Oh no, okay. Did I answer your question? Like, yeah.
Yeah,
Are you
you answered
satisfied
it.
with the answer? Okay.
Silu, I have a question for you. Do you think
Yeah,
men not privileged
I'm not.
from patriarchy? Can you hear me?
Well, listen, it depends how. Yes, 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 yes. It depends how you, what is considered privilege and what is not. Remember, South Africa in general has a very low unemployment rate for whoever, because I could say, that you don't see a woman on the streets, on the side of the streets, asking for jobs. You don't see like, and you must consider that the types of jobs that are available in South Africa as well. So I struggle to understand the idea that men are privileged and how that it's a privilege to have this thing in between your legs. Um, that like that would be implying that life is much easier for men. You check. If you're gonna take, for example, I mean, the fact of discrimination that you are made to be inferior. There's discrimination of color. So are men less likely to experience, discrimination? South Africa in general is a discriminatory country. That doesn't mean that women are less likely to experience, um, what do you call it, discrimination. So there's many lines of discrimination and being made to feel inferior, you see. So how can that be a determiner of privilege? That's something that I don't understand. And by believing that men are privileged, I would have to believe that as a whole, our experience is much easier. And yeah, we're just cruising by, basically on the point, just because we have something in between our legs that is, you know, yeah, I'm not gonna say what it is, but
Yeah, you don't have to elaborate on that one. Okay, just before I come to you, Mira, with what you just said now about discrimination and it also going to color. So then, what do you think of white privilege then? Do you think that white privilege is a thing then? If you don't think,
are you asking me?
yes, you, Silu, I'm asking you.
Are you asking me?
Silu, yes.
Do you want me to talk about that now? Do you want me to talk about that now?
Do you not want to talk about it right now?
Okay, fine. Listen, no. It's not a probably basic thing, white privilege. So let me put it like this. If I were to believe in white privilege, then I would have to assume that economically, socially, politically, and just the general experience of white South Africa is great. What would be the determining factor of privilege? Is it money? Because as a Black man, I'm privileged right now. Um, if you're going to talk about white people are less likely to experience discrimination, you might be able to say that white people are less likely to be profiled. But white people politically don't really have a voice. White men can't they can't really speak much. They can't really speak their mind. So I don't understand. I sort of agree with white privilege that a certain demographic, a large demographic of white people are forward in society today because they inherited a certain amount of riches. Their parents got their jobs because they were able to network during apartheid. They have a better culture of commerce, but times have changed, as Black South Africans. I mean, we are able to be accepted into the middle class. So when it comes to things like privilege, you have to take into consideration the personal experience of each individual. Yes, as a large, Black people might be at a lower economic denominator. That thing, I can't blame white people right now. That's a socioeconomic issue that our government that we voted for is now responsible for. So I don't know if I answered your question well, but kind of, sort of, I do believe in white privilege, but hey, when it comes to certain things, it's confusing.
Okay.
That's why I struggle also to
Onto the one.
understand.
Milk.
Yeah.
Okay, Mira, you have something to add on there?
Okay. Gonna go back to what Sina said in the beginning. Was okay, I can't remember your exact words, but basically, with regards to I'm trying to remember now. Privilege and okay. Basically mentioned something about okay, we were speaking about women and yeah, men being more privileged.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned I think it was Black men, maybe would they also be facing kind of like being oppressed as well? Also, was it like something along the lines of that? Sido, I'm just trying to like figure out if I heard like correctly, because like I had my answer and then like
No,
yeah.
Yeah. You said that
basically
women
like,
are privileged based on the, because they, women in general don't get paid enough and they're more likely to be discriminated and made feel inferior. That's what you say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So you basically mentioned also how Black men would also be discriminated against as well. They also face, discrimination and everything, Yeah. Okay. So that is where intersectionality comes in. The definition we did like way earlier. So an example of the intersectionality theory is that, okay, for example, okay, for example, a white woman and a Black woman, okay? They both might be discriminated against because they are women. But a Black woman would face more discrimination solely based on her race. So she's being discriminated against because of her gender as well as her race. Whereas, for example, if you put a Black man and a Black woman against each other, they'll both face discrimination based on their race. But the woman is going to face discrimination based on her gender as well. So that's kind of what
Mira, can I please just
that means. Yeah.
So we have a question from the chat room. It says, do you believe that at the bottom of the socioeconomic hierarchy is women? So to kind of like tie it up.
At the bottom.
Mhm.
I don't know. I can't answer that question.
Okay.
Sorry.
But were you done with what you want to say?
Yeah.
I'm
That was what I was trying to say.
going to move on to Lita. Lita, you answered women of color, to be specific. Can you please elaborate on that? You need to wait.
Excuse me, I didn't hear your question that you were directing at me.
The question that was in the chat room now, do you believe that at the bottom of the socioeconomic hierarchy is women?
Yeah, I do. And I believe Mira was going towards that point, you know, like with the whole racial thing too. She was getting to it because I do believe that people of color, that are women, are at the bottom of everything, honestly. As much as we are oppressed as black niggas, you know, we are, like, you know, but you guys just even worse, you know.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa. Will I see, was your hand up on purpose or is that a mistake?
Yeah, no, it was on purpose.
All right.
See that it's been answered by Milani saying that I think there's more women at the lower end of the hierarchy. However, I think that men are both hierarchy extremes as they apply both the lowest and highest positions. So that was Milani, but I feel like considering the fact that slavery still exists, I feel like they are at the true bottom. Slaves are at the true bottom of the socioeconomic ladder. So yeah, in
Who are you referring to now?
in sort of modern
A woman, men.
the question, the socioeconomic question.
Oh, okay.
If I had to bring as much as I could into context, it would be slaves, since they still exist to this day. So yeah, they are at the bottom, the true bottom.
Okay. I think what I'll do is we'll just move on to the next question. Silu is out for a bit. I mean, I think he's trying to get back in, but in the meantime, we'll just move on to the next question. Okay, question 7. Okay, from my questions now is, how does toxic masculinity pressure men into remaining ignorant? And I'll have you answer that, please.
Okay, how does toxic? Okay, ignorance itself is the lack of knowledge and information. So I credit the cause of ignorance to that, whether it be ignorance by men or women. But as far as toxic masculinity goes and how it can play a part in this, I would say it could, if, let's say, we take something that might be considered a masculine trait, such as pride, as I said before.
Mm-hmm.
If you're too proud to learn new things or acknowledge them, or at least understand them and comprehend them well, then I feel like that would aid to your ignorance. Yeah,
Okay.
that's my answer.
Okay, thank you. Mira, can you answer that question?
Okay, so I think that, yeah, a big reason as to why men do remain ignorant and don't change is due to toxic masculinity. And I think that that's because they are kind of afraid of what society will see them as. You know, how they think, you know, there's a certain way that you need to act in order for you to be manly. And they probably, you know, think, you know, or have been conditioned to think that if you deviate from that, you'll be seen as weak or less than a man. So I think that it's mainly fear that keeps them, you know, like, you know, staying ignorant about it.
Yeah. Thank you, Mira. Lita, do you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, I do. I feel like, the earlier you guys spoke about how like it's a personal decision, you know, to like eradicate like the toxicity within yourself or whatnot. And I said it's not easy as you guys say because of this question, because as niggas, like you see toxic masculinity, to most guys, well, right now, like we embrace it. Do you know what I mean? We don't see it as how you see it. You don't see it as bad. We see it as the right thing to do, as was mentioned earlier. When you get used to something so much, like when you grow up with a certain trait and seeing the same things, you believe that's right. You know, so that toxicity, you know, if you repeat it often enough, and some niggas don't want to fall out of that because of what Mira just said, you'll be viewed as, you know, less of a man and stuff like that. So that really does combine, and you stay, you know, ignorant because you don't see yourself as being wrong. That's the first thing. You don't see it as wrong, if that makes any sense. Oh,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Milani in the chat room says men remain
yeah,
ignorant
oh,
because
yeah.
they want to uphold locker room etiquette. The deep need to impress other men, regardless of morally knowing wrong from right, is why men are struggling to defeat toxic masculinity. That's an interesting take, Milani. Okay, cool. We can move on to the next question. This is the last question. Okay, so the last question is: do you think men use the benefits of patriarchy to assert dominance in relationships? Why or why not? Lita, can you start us off with that one? Lita.
How do men use toxic masculinity to assert dominance in relationships?
Yeah.
I think that
Do you think
happens like naturally. Yeah.
and
Excuse me?
and in yeah, okay, in relationships. So do you think that they do? They use it to benefit in relationships.
Hmm?
Do you think so? The question.
I didn't catch your last sentence.
Oh, sorry. So the question is: do you think men use the benefits of patriarchy to assert dominance in relationships?
Yeah, naturally,
Naturally.
because you see yourself as bigger because of what patriarchy does, you know, because it is the system of how society, you know, works in that ladder. So naturally, you just assume that, you know, you are superior to your partner or whoever, like you're in a relationship with. You just use it to your advantage naturally, you know.
Thank you, Lisa. Vuyo, can you answer the question for me?
Okay. I believe that, you know, in a patriarchal society, males automatically have certain advantages, and they're there to be used for them. Those who want to use them, because, well, they are advantages for them. So, however, I don't think that it is as prevalent in, let's say, a society that just has remnants of patriarchy and is not a full blown patriarchy. And in that instance, it's all dependent on choice and the acceptance of patriarchal practices by the individuals or the society as a whole. So although it's possible, it is possible to, you know, assert dominance using patriarchal influence in both instances. Yeah, but I believe, yeah, it does lie in choice.
Mira, can you please answer that question?
do I think that men use the benefits of patriarchy to assert dominance in relationships? Yes, I do. Definitely think that they do. I wouldn't say that, all men in relationships do it. There are a lot of men that, acknowledge a certain way that society has, made the norm is wrong, and they are trying to change that. But in a lot of relationships, men do use the benefits of patriarchy to assert dominance, because that's what, society has kind of shows us is right, that men should take the lead, men should be in charge, men make all the decisions. So when it comes to relationships, men automatically think that's how it's going to work over here. Normally, I'm the one that is in control. So over here, even though I might not be equipped enough to take the lead or make the best decision in this certain, the specific situation, maybe in your relationship, you're going to say, no, that's what was taught to me. That is what society deems is correct. So I'm going to take the lead, and I'm going to be in control, and, don't say anything. That's what's right. So they do use that to their advantage and to assert dominance.
All right. Thank you, Mira. All right, guys. Silu is out. He's having issues with his connection, so I don't think he'll come back. But that was the last question. So we have come to the end of the discussion. Thank you, Lita. Thank you. Yes, Will.
Oh yeah, I just thought back to us very briefly addressing the gender pay gap.
Pega.
I think I need some more clarity on that, because I feel like it's fair to point out that there are some flaws in those statistics. I mean, that median gap is calculated, by lining up all of men and women's wages from top to bottom and comparing where the median falls. And I feel like that's primarily where the gender pay gap comes from. Of course, I do acknowledge some disadvantages and all that and other factors that come into play, but yeah, it's a bit skewed, really.
You check you. Mira, do you have anything to add on to that?
Sorry. With Will, I don't know, it might be flawed, but I can still see in today's society, that men are given certain positions just solely based on the fact that they are men. I've seen it myself in previous workplaces that they wouldn't take a woman on just because she is a woman. So it is still very prevalent. I saw a comment by Milani. He said the fittest should lead. What did he say?
Yeah, he did say that.
The fittest should lead. Simple. Yes, I agree that the fittest should lead. Simple. With regards to the whole relationship thing and dominance, it shouldn't be based on the gender, basically. So, there are going to be instances where the male in the relationship will maybe be better equipped to do a certain task, maybe, but there might be another situation where I'm better equipped, but it shouldn't be based on our gender, but more based on who is more fit to do this, and who is better to do the task at hand. So yeah.
Okay, Silu, hi. I see you are back. Okay, Silu, you have 2 questions to answer for us, please. First one is, how does toxic masculinity pressure men into remaining ignorant?
Oh, Sisa Nkanunu.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I said you have 2 questions to answer, ne?
Yes.
You missed out on much. The first question is, how does toxic masculinity pressure men into remaining ignorant?
Okay.
Put in your glasses for that one. All right.
Yeah, because I can't see properly. How does it pressure men into being ignorant?
Remaining.
Mm, okay, let me answer it like this. Um, I think young men, uh, or men in general, or men, let me say, yeah, sorry, men are captured in the young ages by this ideal because it seems more appealing. Uh, in, I mean, we're living in times where there's less and less meaning in life, especially for young men, because our adulthood is extended, you know. Um, so a lot of people go into this depressive state, and so it seems attractive. It seems very attractive. These ideals of toxic masculinity, and you feel comfortable. I mean, you build an ego, and when your ego is challenged, you're so scared. You become so scared because now you realize that, oh no, man, I don't know that much. Your intelligence is being attacked. If you constantly, go through your life believing something, and then you realize that it's wrong, how disappointed, are you really going to feel? So yeah, it's attractive, it's comfortable, it's bliss, and that's how young men maintain their in this toxic uh, masculinity narrative. Yeah, I hope I answered it well.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Okay, the last question is, do you think men use the benefits of patriarchy to assert dominance in relationships?
Is that a question for who?
Usually everyone else has answered them.
Yo, have I missed out on that much? I didn't even. Uh, yeah, my apologies. Um, do men assert their dominant? They use the advantage of patriarchy to.
Assert dominance in relationships.
Uh, yeah, I would say so. I would say if a patriarch has certain values and ideals, um, then obviously at the last stage of life, which is reproduction, um, because that's all we're just putting English in it, and we've become modernized to say relationships. Yeah, it's actually just reproduction. Then yeah, he's gonna assert those ideals uh, in a relationship. But yet again, if that specific patriarch has good values and is led well, then expect the majority of men to be soft, loving, and gentle. You know.
Okay. Um. Okay. Will.
Just to comment on the toxic masculinity being attractive, you know, part of that is true, but it can also swing towards the opposite end, with it being very detrimental. You take consider societies, right, where warriors were an elite class, and warriors were known to be overly violent, and overly aggressive, and aggression is somewhat masculine trait, or is identified as one, right? So these warriors were overly aggressive, and they were rewarded for that and were revered. But the disadvantage that handed them was death, serious injury, psychological trauma afterwards. And even though they were respected by civilians in regards to that, and because of it, uh, they did suffer. So the fact that society values or rewards certain traits, it doesn't mean that they actually good for those who partake or enact them. The same way I said that masculinity or toxic masculinity can swing both ways. You take into consideration the men who, in those militant societies, or societies where warriors were an elite class, the men who didn't want to partake in those wars were considered but less masculine and in some way very cowardly, which can be somewhat toxic when you have to rise to a certain occasion like that. And their advantage was the fact that they got to live. So yeah. That's it.
Okay. Wait, can you hear me? Yes, you can. Does anyone have anything to add to it? No? Okay. Well, that is the end of the discussion. Thank you guys so much for joining. Thank you, Lita. Thank you, Mira. Thank you, Silu. Thank you, Will. Yeah, catch us next time. That's not next week, but the week after. You'll see the advertisements as we go. Stay safe, wear a mask, don't forget to sanitize. Thank you guys. Bye.
Bye.